What's going on, guys? Today we're checking out the Verve Plus 3 from Trek Bikes. Now this is the third generation of the Verve Plus. The Verve model from Trek was one of their most popular non-electric bikes, all right? So then they made the Verve Plus model, electrified it, and then they've made a Verve Plus 2 and a Verve Plus 3. There's not a whole lot of changes on the Verve Plus 3. Now, if you've already seen my review of the Trek Verve Plus 2 or have been checking out from other places, I'm just gonna run through the changes real quick, and then we'll dive into the review and talk about all the components in depth and all of that. So not a whole lot of changes, the biggest of which is that they've upgraded the battery and the motor, so much better electrical drivetrain here. Before we had a power pack battery, the Bosch Power Pack 400, that sat mounted on top of the down tube. Now we've got the Bosch PowerTube integrated into the frame here. Really nice, sleek integration, and this is actually compatible with the Bosch Range Boost. So you've got these 3 bottle cage bosses here and a little port right up here. So there's a Bosch Range Boost option where you mount a special frame on right here that can then hold a power pack battery, so you can double your range really easily. But if you just want to use the standard battery pack, this is a 500 watt hour approximately pack versus being just shy of 400 for the Verve Plus 2 model. Well, that's a nice change right there. You've also got a slightly more powerful motor here. We've upgraded to the Bosch Active Line Plus mid-drive motor here. Last time it had the Bosch Active Line, just the standard one, no plus. So what this does for you, it's just a little bit more powerful. It's still pretty close to the same motor, but if you ride them back to back, you'll definitely notice the difference. You get more torque here, 50 Newton meters instead of 40. It can handle a higher pedal cadence of 105 revolutions per minute instead of just 100 on the standard Active Line. A little bit higher max assist of 270% instead of 250% before. It does weigh a little bit more now. It weighs 7.1 pounds instead of, I want to say it was around 6.4 before. So a little bit of a weight bump, but you get a pretty good performance bump there. You can really tell a difference, especially if you've got that shifted up into turbo mode to get the maximum assist. It is noticeable. I do like having more power on it. Those are the 2 biggest changes here. There's some more minor ones. The tires have changed. It's still Bontrager, which is Trek's in-house brand, but now we've got these E6 tires instead of the old H5s. Now these are a little bit wider. You're looking at 50C here, 700C by 50C versus last year's generation was 45C for the width on the tire. So that means you get a little bit more volume, a little bit more comfort out of those. Not a huge amount, but it does make a difference. Other than that, pretty much the same here. The puncture protection labeling on them has changed. So before it was the hard case ultimate puncture protection, and now it is called hard case light. I don't know what the difference is between those or the construction on those. I wasn't able to find any info online, so that's interesting, but it should effectively amount to the same thing. They've still got this nice hybrid tread pattern on them, got the reflective sidewall striping, so solid tires all around. One other change is that the fork here is now an alloy fork instead of being solid steel before. Now steel has some vibration dampening qualities which can help to smooth out the ride a little bit, but when it's just the fork, it's a pretty minor difference, right? So it's switched over to alloy, which is lighter. Now the whole bike here weighs 55 pounds. This is a small frame on it right here. Now normally I would be riding an extra large frame because I'm tall at 6'3", but this was the only version that Trek had available for me to test, so I'm working with what I got here. Now they do offer a lot of sizes on the Verve Plus 3, so if you get the step-through model, which is what we have here, then you can do small, medium, or large. And then if you get the high step model, then you can go medium, large, or extra large. Lots of sizes to fit a wide range of riders, which is awesome. This is really one of the perks that you get if you buy from somebody like Trek, right? There's a big range of sizes. They've got dealers all over the place, so you can go in, you can get test rides in, you can get it fitted perfectly for you. Really nice benefit that you don't get if you were to buy online, whether that's from like one of the online only dealers, like Sondor's, Juiced, Rad, like that, or there's even some hybrid ones, right? Like Aventon, where they do have dealers, but not a ton of dealers. So depending on where you live, you might have to order it online. So with Trek, it's easy to find a dealer, go in, get fitted. Really a nice benefit to be able to actually test ride a bike before you drop money on it. Now the price has changed here compared to the last generation. You're looking at $29.99 now, where the previous 2 generations of this were $24.99. Now when you consider the more powerful electric drivetrain, the bigger battery, and that PowerTube integration, the price change makes sense. They also didn't raise the price at all for the Verve Plus 2, compared to just the original Verve Plus. So it has been overdue for any kind of a price change. Now at $3,000, it's starting to get a little bit pricey. It is still on the lower end for Trek's electric bikes. Theirs tend to be a little bit more premium and a little bit higher priced. Now they do have some that are a little bit cheaper, and then they've got their brand Electra, which is owned by Trek, and those are a lot more affordable, even some down around 1,500 USD. Now, as far as whether it's worth the price increase up to $29.99, it's really going to depend on what you're looking for out of the bike. If having good customer service and a dealer that you can take it into for maintenance and repairs and a really good warranty, if that's important to you, then this becomes a lot more compelling even at $3,000. And they've got a great warranty on here. You're looking at a 2-year comprehensive warranty and then lifetime on the frame and fork, which is fantastic. Trek builds really good bike. I mean, they've been making standard bicycles, not electric bicycles, just standard bikes for many, many years. And you can really tell that expertise when you jump on and ride. It feels like a well-built, well-tuned bicycle machine that then also has some electric assist. It's feature complete too, which is awesome. This is a great commuting option because you get these fenders, full-length plastic fenders. Now, plastic fenders have a reputation for being a little bit more rattly than metal ones, than alloy or steel, but these ones are really well mounted. They're secured to the bottom of the rack here, and the frame, rock solid. We'll do some riding on some bumps later so that you can hear there's just not really any noticeable fender rattle. I appreciate how well they mounted those on there. You get a nice rack back here, 25 kilogram weight limit, which is standard. Now this is a MIK-compatible rack. See that right here, MIK HD. The MIK click system is a variety of accessories that will just kind of click and lock in to the rack here. For example, you can have some pannier bags that click in there, so when you get to the store, you just press a button, lift them off, and you can walk right in. There's child carriers and various other things. It's really nice if you don't want to leave your bags or accessories on the bike, but you still want them to be secure while you're riding, and you don't want to have to deal with any straps that take a lot of time to unfasten and refasten every time. So that's pretty awesome. I like to see that. You can check out all kinds of MIK-compatible accessories online, and then they also make a adapter plate that you can mount onto like other bags or racks and things like that to make it so that they will lock on there. Definitely a nice touch. You also get lights that are included here in the back. This is a Solo by Spaninga tail light, 3 LEDs, pretty reasonably bright too. And it's positioned in a decent spot so that it shouldn't be blocked by stuff you put on the rack. If you have some bigger bags or something that hang off the back, that could block that light, so you should try to be careful that you don't do that. Up front, the headlight is awesome. This one is, I think it's Hermans is the name of the company, and these lights are great. They are 120 lumens, which isn't crazy, but is bright enough for most use cases, and they've got really good side visibility here. You can see those side cutouts, so they shine to the side. That gives you good visibility if there's oncoming traffic from the side. You also have those reflective sidewall stripes on the tires that help out there. So really a solid commuting option, having the rack, fenders, and lights. And then the seat here does come with a suspension seat post, about 30 millimeters of travel on there. So it's not a ton, but it definitely makes a difference, right? It helps out to smooth out those bumps. The saddle is quite comfy too. This is the Bontrager Boulevard saddle. It's a fairly wide saddle. As you can see here, it's pretty comfy to sit on and should do well for longer commutes if that's what you need to do. Now, there's no other suspension on the bike besides that suspension seat post. So nothing up front, no rear frame suspension. So it might be a little bit rough on the hands and wrists if you've got sensitivity there and you like to have a little bit more suspension and comfort for your hands on the grips. Now, you could install something like a suspension stem to help absorb some of that shock up front, but if you do that, you're going to lose a little bit of adjustability and compatibility here. So this quill stem is fantastic. You can swivel this a huge degree here to raise or lower the handlebars and push that forward. And another benefit of this stem is that it's blender compatible, so there's a lot of different accessories that you can mount right onto the stem here. This could range from like a cycle computer to maybe an additional headlight that's a bit brighter, that you maybe you already have a headlight that you like or something like that. So a lot of different accessories that you can put on there. Definitely a nice thing to have, especially since we've got the Bosch Purion display here. Now this is actually one of my favorites of Bosch's, but that's just because I like the really small kind of out of the way display that just lets you ride it like a bike and not have to worry too much about what's going on with the electronics. But it doesn't have a whole lot of features to it. Right now I'm comparing it to the Bosch Kiox, for example, or the Intuvia, two of their newer displays that are color, have a lot more features, USB charging ports and all kinds of stuff like that. They even have a smartphone hub where you can just use your smartphone as a display and you get a whole bunch of extra features there. So compared to all of those, very basic here. Let's just jump in and run through it really quick. We've got a great rundown on the Purion display, and actually all of the Bosch displays back on our website, ElectricBikeReview.com, if you check out our forum there. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on this here. We'll go ahead and power it on here, up with the power button on the top of the display. It always starts up and off regardless of what mode you had it in the last time that you were using it, and the lights are always on, and that's just how it is. So there's that headlight, nice and bright. Come around back here to the tail light. This is done as a safety feature, keeping the lights on. Now normally on a Bosch control system you could hold down the plus here and that would turn off the lights, but if you hold that down on here, nothing happens, the lights don't turn off, just always on, which honestly is good for safety. And these are low power lights, low power enough that they're not going to be a huge drain on your battery, so it's perfectly fine that they're just left on. Another feature that is disabled on Trek's bikes is the walk mode, right? So that's this button on the bottom of the display. Normally you would hold this down and it would engage that rear wheel at a walking speed, designed to help if you need to, say, walk the bike up a hill. Maybe you've got you've got some groceries that you're carrying, too many to fit on the rack, maybe you're walking with a friend, but you can't do that with the Trek bikes. Now the reason for this, from what I've been able to find, is that this is a class 1 electric bike, which means it has no throttle, and so Trek has even disabled the walk mode, since technically that's kind of a throttle, just like a really low speed throttle. They want to be absolutely crystal clear that, hey, this is a class 1 and it's no throttle at all. They don't want to get in any legal trouble, which I can understand, honestly. And I actually kind of like seeing this on here, where a lot of other manufacturers are kind of playing it fast and loose with those regulations, where they're making bikes that can go a bit over the 20 miles per hour with the throttle, or it can go a bit over 28 using just pedal assist, and like, it's close enough, and kind of getting away with it because a lot of e-bike regulations are non-existent, honestly, or different states and cities will have their own stuff going on. So I appreciate that Trek is being very clear and intentional about how they're designing all of this stuff here. So this is a class 1, you can see the sticker right under there, class 1 e-bike, 250 watt motor, maximum of 20 miles per hour. That is interesting that they say max of 250 watts, since that's the nominal for the motor. It can actually peak all the way up at 415 watts. But anyways, okay, coming back around to the display here. So every time that it powers on, you'll see off right here, which means no pedal assist is active. And you can press the plus here to engage that up. You can go Eco, Tour, Sport, or the highest, Turbo. Now Eco is pretty light, as you would imagine. It's only a little bit of assist, not a whole lot of torque. Gives you a little bit of help, but you're still mostly doing all the work yourself. And then all the way up in Turbo, it is noticeable. It's not super aggressive, it's not gonna you can't ride it in turbo and expect to do no physical work. You're still going to be pedaling this bike, since it's a class 1 with no throttle, and you get some pretty impressive range on these too. You can let's see if I think you hold down the down button here to see some more details. So it'll show you the current trip timer. Oops, let me switch that back to turbo. So you hold down minus and you can cycle between these different readouts. So the first one is the trip timer there, and then the next one is the odometer for the bike. And then if you hold that down one more time, you get your range. Now the range here adjusts based on the pedal assist level that you've got going on. So we're in turbo right now, 30 miles of range. If we were to bump that all the way down to eco, then it will update our range and say 80 miles. And I've been riding around 14 miles on this already. So it's basically saying that when it's in eco and you're riding on decent terrain, some hills, but mostly like evens out to flats, then you're looking at like a 90 to 100 mile range, which is pretty sweet. If you live in a place that has a lot more hills, and then if you kick that on up to turbo, that's going to really cut into your range quite a bit, but still 30 to 40 miles riding in turbo is pretty awesome. And that makes up for, you know, down at the bottom here where we've got the battery indicator. That's only 5 bars, so it's not very precise, 20% steps, but the range estimator on here tends to be very accurate. This is an area where Bosch has really done a good job. You know, they make their displays and their controllers and their motors and their batteries. They control that whole system, so they're really able to achieve a high level of performance here. The Active Line Plus motor, which as I mentioned is a 250 watt nominal motor, peaking up at about 415 watts, 50 Newton meters of torque. This is a pretty, how should I say, it's a mild motor, right? It doesn't get very loud. It doesn't give you a ton of power, but it's definitely noticeable. Just like the Active Line on last year, this is a motor that's really designed for more active cyclists that want some help from the motor so they can ride farther and faster, but they don't, you know, they don't need a throttle, they don't need a ton of help. So if you really enjoy pedaling and being a bit more active, then that's where this is going to be a good fit for you. Now, one thing about these Bosch motors is that they do measure both torque and cadence. They actually measure over 1,000 readings per second. So you've got torque, you've got rear wheel speed, you've got your pedal cadence. All of these factors are measured, and that makes these motors some of the most responsive in the business. They're really quite responsive. It's a lot of fun to ride. Now, one downside of having this primarily torque-based system is that if you've got weak knees and don't want to be putting too much pressure on the pedals, this might not be as good of a fit as a purely cadence-based system. Those only require you to be cycling the cranks versus actually putting pressure on them. So, you know, like I said, I think that this is a better fit if you're a little bit more active of a rider. Now, it's still fairly lightweight, 7.1 pounds. There are some lighter ones out there from Bosch, but this is pretty decent for what you get. Up to 105 RPMs in terms of the max pedal cadence support. Now, this is, again, kind of middle of the line for Bosch. They've got some that go as high as 120. So if you're somebody that likes to really cycle those pedals fast while you're riding, down in kind of an easier gear, you'd really want to go in and test ride one of these first, just to make sure that it's going to be able to fit for how you like to ride. Now, the charger is right here. Now, this is not a great position for the charging port. I would really like to see some tweaks here because it's right next to these cranks, right? So if you have the bike plugged in and charging while the battery is still in the down tube, then maybe you just have to like move it around a little bit, or the bike gets knocked over. The cranks can collide with that cord while it's charging. You could cause some damage to the cord, or, you know, God forbid, your charge port there. So my recommendation would be to take the battery off and charge it off the bike. One more thing to note on that motor here, since this is the latest generation of the Active Line Plus, is that it does allow you to pedal backwards and cycle the cranks, and it does have a full-size chainring in here. I forget the size on the chainring here. I'm just going to guess that it's probably around like 42 or 44 tooth steel chainring in there. Now, older versions of the Active Line motor from Bosch had what was called a reduction gearing system. So they had a small chainring, only about 12 teeth or so, and then they used some reduction gears so that if you pedaled the cranks 1 revolution around, it would actually move that chainring at, you know, 2.5 revolutions, right? So the idea here was that you know, it made everything smaller and more lightweight up here, but and there were some other benefits from it too, but it had some downsides, one of which was that if you pedaled backwards, the chain didn't cycle, so you couldn't apply any, you know, chain grease or do maintenance as easily. Another downside was that it caused a little bit of drag. If you were riding without the motor turned on or pushing past the point of electric assistance, then that reduction gearing system would cause a little bit of a drag. You wouldn't be able to ride quite as smoothly. We'll pop the battery out, and I can show you the charger too, because I brought that with me. It's the standard Bosch compact charger. So Bosch has one of these. They also have a bigger fast charger. This one's only 2 amp, which is pretty standard. It's small and lightweight, and honestly, I think this is a pretty good fit for the bike because it's not a very high capacity pack. And this is very easy to toss in a backpack and carry with you. There's also, it's actually like a CD that's got the manual on it and some other tips and whatnot from Trek. And they put a huge manual into the box here. Let's see if I can extract this. A pretty darn big manual that turns out to not actually be that big once you get in, and you realize that that's because they have, you know, a ton of different languages in here since they sell worldwide. But this is still far better than the manuals that you get with most electric bikes, especially the ones that are, you know, online ordering only. So I really appreciate that they included all of this stuff with the bike. It definitely helps you to buy with confidence if this is a first e-bike for you. Got the keys right here. Now these are ABUS keys, and this is what's called like a key to like system, right? So what you would do is you would, you know, take, if you get onto abus.com, you can use the key code that comes with these keys here, and then you can order like bike locks and different accessories and stuff that will use the same keys. And not to mention just ordering replacement keys if you need to. Definitely a great thing to see. So to remove the battery, you put the key in on the side right over here. Now it is a multi-step process, so once you turn that key, it will pop the battery out just a little bit. I'm gonna come around on this side. And then to actually get it out, you've got to pull down right here, and then the battery will slide out. Pretty lightweight here for the Bosch PowerTube 500. That works out to 482 watt hours capacity. You know, pretty decent. That's about middle of the pack these days. You got a charging port right down there on the bottom so that you can charge it off the bike. This turns into a little carry handle right here that makes it easy to transport around with you. Definitely a good touch. I think they did a great job with the integration on it. Now it is a little bit difficult to get put back in there with one hand. You got to get it kind of lined up right there, and then you've got to turn the key with one hand when you slide it back in. And then once it's clicked back in, I always, you know, try to tug on it, make sure that it is locked in there, and it is. So yeah, really good integration there. I think the upgrade to the PowerTube was a great move instead of the Power Pack. More visually appealing, more sleek, and it helps this to look more like a regular bike, right? Especially if you were seeing it from this side over here where you can't see any branding on the motor, it might be difficult to guess that this is an electric bike. Even though this is a mid-step frame, it's still designed pretty securely. They've got this extra support bar right here that helps to add a little bit more strength and rigidity, helps to reduce the frame flex. I've ridden it up to 20 miles per hour, max speed with the pedal assist, and it felt really stable. You know, even considering that it's a step through, it felt rock solid. Trek does really know what they're doing making frames, so you can definitely see that in action. Plenty of mounting points for mounting all kinds of stuff. I mean, we've already got the fenders and the rack and everything on here, but there's some extra mounting points here, and also up on the fork right here for, you know, mounting. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure what you would be mounting there. I've seen fenders that mount onto those points, possibly like maybe like a front basket or something like that. I appreciate having the kickstand mounted in the rear here. This is really nice if you're doing chain maintenance, or you just need to, you know, move the bike around with the kickstand down. It lets you pedal backwards here without having to worry about colliding the cranks and the kickstand. They've still got this really nice alloy cover, or actually I think that is a, yeah, it is alloy, aluminum alloy cover up here that protects the chain ring, protects the chain. They've even got the slap guard on the chainstay right here. This is a nice drivetrain we've got here too. This is the Shimano Alivio group set. This is a couple steps up in quality from the Shimano line, where you've got, you know, Tourney down at the bottom, Altus above that, and then you get up into Alivio. Really high performing here. You've got a wide range cassette in the back, the Shimano Hyperglide. This is 11 to 36 teeth, so that's a pretty good range. That's, you know, any wider than that and you'd start getting into what you would expect to see on like a mountain bike or something like that. For riding around town, this is fantastic, even for tackling some steeper inclines on just pedal power or down in eco. And the shifting performance on the Alivio is really nice too. Not only do you get the just really satisfying tactile feedback up here, but these are multi-directional shifters, so that lower thumb shifter is for shifting down into easier gears. You can dump up to 3 of those shifting down, and then the front lever here is a 2-way, right? So you can either press on it with your index finger up here, or you can press on it with your thumb. This is really nice if you want to, you know, keep fingers on the brakes and then operate both shifting paddles with one finger. Really nice touch to give you that option there, and as I mentioned, very satisfying tactile clicky feedback from those. Really a solid group set on here, so that you can easily ride this like it was a regular bike, and if you run out of battery capacity on your way home, it's not really going to be a big deal to pedal it home. It is a little bit more heavy, 55 pounds, so it's a little bit more heavy than a standard bike, but still definitely doable here. We've got nice grips up here from Bontrager. These are the Bontrager Satellite Elite grips. Ergonomic rubber, they are locking grips, so they're not going to rotate around at all, even if you bear down with a lot of weight on there. The brakes here, hydraulic disc brakes from Shimano. Shimano, I think it's like the MT MT420s. So what these are, 2-finger levers here, hydraulic disc brakes with 160mm rotors in the front and rear, solid stopping power, they're quiet, they're smooth, they're really high performing brakes. They did an awesome job with those. The pedals here are, of course, Bontrager as well. The reason we've been saying Bontrager everything all over the bike, this is Trek's in-house component brand. Any Trek bike is going to have mostly Bontrager parts. A lot of them are, they tend to be very durable, have good warranty coverage on them, and you can get them at any Trek store, which is really nice if you travel around a lot. These are pretty wide pedals, and they're solid plastic here with the steel core, and they've got these pins on them of different heights to add some good traction, and they do a good job with traction. They feel very grippy, and nice wide reflectors all around them there. The saddle, of course, Bontrager as well. Bontrager Boulevard saddle, pretty wide. Got the suspension seat post on there. That is a 27.2mm diameter seat post. I've got it all the way up at the highest level that it can go to here, trying to make the bike fit for me, even though I'm a little bit too tall for it. And tires here, of course, there's those Bontrager E6 connection rims, and then E6 tires here. These are e-bike specific tires. You can see that right down here, rated for up to 50 kilometers per hour, 700 by 50C hard case light puncture protection. Great commuting tires. They've got great visibility from the sidewall striping. They've got a really good they've got a really good hybrid tread pattern here where the center is very smooth, good rolling efficiency, and then on the sides it's got a lot more texture and grip to it. That way when you're turning, you get more traction. If you were to start to slide sideways or something, if you're riding in wet or icy conditions, that can help you to regain traction. Definitely a good fit for a commuting bike. Now the step-through frame that I've got here, it's really comfy to sit on. Even though the bike is way too small for me, it's still a nice comfy upright position. I can't get my legs extended fully to pedal, but other than that, it feels great. That's one thing that's really nice about the Verve Plus 3 is the approachability. So if you're looking for a bit more upright, comfortable seating position, something that's easier and more approachable to mount and dismount, you definitely want to go for the step through here. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit more aggressive, more of a forward seating position, maybe you're going to be riding it a little bit faster, more aggressively, then you'd go for the high step version. All right, hey, let's jump on it and see what it can do. Now, just like last year, when we first go for a ride, I'm actually going to leave the display off. Just jump on and ride it like a bike first. Got it down in gear 3. And even starting out in gear 3, very easy to ride. If we shift that all the way down to first gear, then I can ride slow, have a really nice pedal cadence, and it's so smooth. The Shimano Alivio system does a great job. And I've got as I mentioned, nice upright seating position on this step-through frame. Let me switch over here so the light's a bit better. Very comfy, even being way too big for this bike. Still feels quite nice. I would like to be able to extend my legs more fully, so I would definitely go for a larger frame size if I was buying one of these for me. But even for making do with a smaller size, super easy. We can shift that up a couple gears here. There's a little bit of clunking from the gears back there, I think just from them being so new, but it's just such a smooth and nice feeling pedaling experience. Now we're gonna go ahead and fire up the motor here. I'll hit that power button on the top of the display. We'll turn that on, and as I mentioned, it always turns on and off. And we're getting, up here to 15 or so miles per hour just pedaling. I still got the motor turned off, but even with the motor off, very easy to just ride it like a bike and get going pretty quick. So that's what I was talking about earlier, is that if you do run out of battery power while you're out and about, you can still ride this home, no problem. Or even if you're, let's say you go on a group bike ride and you're riding with some friends or family members that have standard bikes and you don't want to leave them in the dust, you can just turn the motor off and ride and keep pace with them. Really nice touch to be able to do that. We're gonna get off of the bike trail here. Shift that back down a little bit. And we're going to kick on the motor and go right around up on the main street right up here. So I'm gonna move it up to Eco first. I can hear the motor, but it is very quiet. Let me see if you guys can even hear it at all down here. we'll get turned out onto the street here. The motor power is enough that I can feel it, but it's definitely not overwhelming or overpowering. It's very subtle, just a nice little extra boost when you're riding an eco. We're going up a pretty decent incline right here, so I am having to put some work into it, but by shifting down, still pretty easy to get up the hill. And then if I bump that on up into turbo mode, oh yeah, now we're accelerating up the hill. Start shifting up a little bit. Handles it no problem. A nice thing with these Bosch motors is they have shift detection built in. Basically, it kind of cuts power to the motor when you shift, which is important since you've got a mid-drive system here. That means that it is putting stress on the chain, you know, on the standard drive chain, compared to a bike that has a rear hub motor. Those ones don't interact with the drivetrain at all, so these ones a little bit more wear and tear on it, which is why they have that shift detection built in. Now, even in turbo, it is really quiet. It's essentially instant activation and deactivation. One of the nicest things about these Bosch motors is that they kick in instantly, they kick off instantly. That's why they're able to get away with the brakes up here not having any motor inhibitors. Motor inhibitors would cut power to the motor as soon as you squeeze it. But you know, here, as long as you stopped pedaling, then the motor just cuts off instantly. And this motor is also not extremely powerful either. You'd be able to overpower it pretty easily, even if you did have to. It's pretty stable, as I mentioned. Being a step through like this, a lot of times there can be more frame flex and can be some stability issues trying to ride no-handed, but pretty decent on here. It's got, you know, a little bit of wobble going on, but certainly doable. So now that we've got it in turbo here, I'm gonna really, you know, kind of push it here, see if we can get up to that 20 miles per hour. The motor typically cuts off, for me it's been cutting off right around 19.8 miles per hour. You know, right about at 20. Similar to other areas of the bike, Trek really plays it safe and makes sure that it doesn't exceed any speed limits, you know, doesn't break any laws or guidelines or anything like that. So it's pretty easy to get up here and cruise at right around 19 to 20 miles per hour. I'm not really pushing the Alivio to its limits. I'm in gear 7 out of 9 here. You've got 9 speeds to work with. So if you wanted to, you know, you can keep shifting up. You'll be riding solely unassisted if you go past 20 miles per hour, but we can do that. Let's give it a try. We're all the way up in 9th now. Definitely a little bit harder pedaling. The motor has just completely shut off, not providing me any help at all. We are going uphill just a little bit as well. All right, we've got a downhill here, so we can, I just wanted to get the bike going a bit faster so I can comment on the stability and performance if you are riding at higher speed. So I think they did a really good job. There we go, about 28. But it feels very stable and solid going at 28 miles per hour, which, I mean, is not a surprise. All the components on here are really well built. We've got the high-speed e-bike tires, so if you live in an area with a lot of hills and you're going to be, you know, riding downhill and exceeding those speeds of 20 miles per hour pretty regularly, the bike is definitely able to handle it. Solid shifting performance. As I mentioned, there's a little bit of clunking on some of those upshifts to the harder gears. It was really clunky when I first got the bike, and as I've been riding it, it's been kind of smoothing out, getting better. So I think that that's, you know, just one of those things when you have a brand new bike that hasn't been ridden much yet. It kind of breaks in a bit as you ride it around. Now, on the ride comfort side of things, before we jump back on, I wanted to pop the seat post out here. So you can preload the spring suspension here. You just need a tool to adjust that, and you can either tighten or loosen the spring to preload it, tighten it up. So if you're a little bit bigger of a rider, that is what you would want to do. And I really should tighten that up for me, because when I'm big enough at 190 pounds that when I climb on it here, I can feel the saddle depress down. It feels like I'm compressing probably a decent amount of the travel there. So if it feels like you're not getting a lot out of the suspension seat post, that would be why you'd want to tighten that up just a little bit. But even as it's set right now, it does help. I can feel it compress more when I'm, you know, going over bumps. As far as the ride comfort goes, I think it's pretty comfy, right? I like how it feels, and I think that the suspension seat post is going to be enough for a lot of people. Now, if you, as I mentioned, if you've got like wrist sensitivity or anything like that, maybe your hands don't do well with that, you know, a lot of like bumping and rattling and shocks up front, then it might not be a good fit. This is why you'd want to go in there and test ride it. I think that it's comfy enough, since we got those wider tires on here, those 40 or those 50C wide tires instead of the 45s. Gives you a little bit of extra comfort, helps out, just a little bit smoother ride, but it's still not anywhere near a full suspension setup, or even just having a suspension fork. Really one of those areas where you want to try it and see how it works out for you. If you are like me and you come from a background of riding, say, road bikes and stuff like that, that has no suspension and very thin tires, then this is going to feel like a lot of comfort. But stopping power on the brakes feels fantastic. Even just using one of the brakes does great for stopping very quickly. Of course, you want to use both of them to really be stopping effectively, but they're very quiet. You know, I haven't ridden a ton of miles on the bike yet, but it's nice that so far they seem perfectly tuned, perfectly quiet. They're nice and clean. If you've ever ordered a bike online, then you may have had problems with your rotors being dirty. Maybe they're not quite lined up. They might be really squeaky and loud the first times that you ride them around. Really is a nice benefit of, you know, getting a bike from somebody like Trek, right? Is that it's perfectly tuned up and ready to go from the dealer. You don't have to do any fiddling with stuff like that. If your commute and your normal riding areas are, you know, paved, like bike paths, bike lanes, you know, stuff like what we're riding in right now, where it's pretty well maintained, there'll be some bumps here and there, but nothing too crazy or aggressive, then this will be fine. If you ride on a lot of unpaved roads, maybe dirt roads, or stuff that's not well maintained, has a lot of potholes and bumps, the suspension may not be sufficient for you. At that point, it's really going to depend on just what your personal comfort levels are, as far as whether or not there'll be enough suspension for you. Okay, gang, we are done with the Trek Verve Plus 3, the third generation of the Verve Plus electric bike from Trek. Now, for a full written review, all the specs and details and pro-con write-up, you can, of course, check out the full written review on ElectricBikeReview.com. There's a link for that in the video description. Back on our site, you can also check out last year's review of the Verve Plus 2 if you want to see some footage from the high-step extra-large frame and see how they compare, since almost everything's the same aside from the upgrade to the new Active Line Plus motor and PowerTube battery system from Bosch. Okay, guys, if you got any thoughts, questions, comments on this review, please chime in the comments section. I'd love to chat with you about it. Thanks for tuning in, ride safe, and we will see you next time.